stories to tell. Henry Harrington now reports.
Last Monday morning at the Beloit Walmsley foundry in Bolton, and they're pouring the first casting of the week. Beloits make the largest paper drying drums in the world, but this one, poured deep into a cavernous mould in the ground, was small, a mere 18 tons. Despite the time-honoured method they use to cast the drums, it's only massive investment in new technology that has saved Beloits from going under.
What we've tried to do in the foundry is to remove the art and introduce the science. Whereas in the old days there was a lot of art in it with people guessing and estimating. We now measure everything you can think of. We measure everything.
After cooling in the ground, the drum is taken to the echoing cathedral of the machine shop. Here it will be honed to a perfect cylinder. This is Beloit's pride and joy, one of a handful of so-called Yankee dryers. Its 146 tons of precision engineering is machined to within thousandths of an inch. The whole process is a risky one. When this drum was cast, an error of just 1 degree in the molten metal could have been fatal. And even after it's machined, the drum still has to be moved.
Let us say, for example, we drop this particular casting now, which is 18-foot diameter by 300 inches face. It would cost this company something in the region of £250,000 to £300,000. You have no insurance for these things. The insurance companies will not take the risk with you.
And this is what the insurance companies won't pay for. If things go wrong, the company is left with just a lump of about 100 tons of scrap but very expensive cast iron, which they have to pig, to use the language of the trade, which means dump.
These 3 rusting lumps were pigged 3 months ago, when the casting process for a big Yankee went awry.
We didn't have the temperature quite correct. Even though the customer had come specially over from America to watch it, we said, no, we're not casting it. Now, obviously, he was very disappointed. No more so than we were, but it would have been wrong to cast it. If we'd have cast it, the metallurgy would have been incorrect. And the metallurgy is the key to all these Yankee dryers.
Foundrymen say metallurgy is the science of mixing hell, fire and water. But that's changing. These samples of molten metal must be tested before the casting can be poured. And it's here that alchemy gives way to modern technology. Leading off the vaporous gloom of the foundry is the investment that changed the firm's future. In the early 1980s, output had slumped to an all-time low. But Beloit's risked £15 million on new technology. Beloit's success since then, in one of the original smokestack industries, has stemmed as much from scientists in spotless white coats as from the broad-shouldered foundryman.
We're looking for carbon, silicon, manganese, phosphorus, sulfur, nickel, chromium, molybdenum, copper, mainly those.
But it wasn't just a question of high technology. Other hard decisions had to be taken to ensure that Beloit's future was one of make rather than break.
We foresaw 10 years ago there was going to be very difficult times ahead. And we planned to reduce costs in every possible way that we could. We reduced the labour force, not by redundancies, but by not replacing every person who left. We just somehow or other managed to do without them. And over a period, we lost a few hundred people in that way. So we reduced our costs, and that meant that we survived just.
Down the road in Preston, at their 3rd greenfield site in 25 years, Baxi Heating are doing trial production runs. The new factory will produce core components for their central heating boilers and gas fires. Unlike Beloit Walmsley, Bax's investment in new technology is here on the factory floor. Last Tuesday, under the watchful eyes of the engineers who designed the computer-controlled production line, the equipment was being put through its commissioning paces. Baxi know that to survive in the foundry business, they have to invest.
We've gone and put in this new foundry, this superb new foundry, I may say, and it's between £7 and £8 million. For a company of our size, that's a very big investment. But it's been part of our company strategy that we continuously reinvest our profits. We've been a profitable company, we've continued to reinvest, and this then is the most recent result.
But inevitably, investment in the latest technology creates a playground for gremlins. But once it's working, the commitment to computerized flexibility will be worth it. The benefits of the introduction of new technology in the casting business can be shown by the difference between these two wall-mounted water heaters. This one, still in production, is rather too heavy for me to even try and mount onto a wall. This one, on the other hand, using finer casting methods, is easy to lift up and put in place. And it's the finer castings which will soon be rolling off Bax's production line. While the product and process are new, not all the older practices are being scrapped. Like melting down the raw iron, skimming off the slag, and tipping a golden flow from the furnace. They've channeled their investment, so there will be less hit and miss in production. In the past, eye, ear, and touch played crucial roles in preparing the sand mould into which the hot iron would be cast.
Their best illustration of whether the sand was mouldable or not was to get a lump of it in the run, throw it against the wall, and if it stuck on the wall, they'd mould with it. If it dropped off the wall, they'd add a bit more water, and that type of thing, or a little bit more clay. But that was the, that was the old-fashioned way of moulding.
Today, the shape, porousness, humidity and compactness of moulding sand are all variables that can be changed on the computer. 21 years ago, Baxi were casting a water heater which required 7 separate moulds. But now, all that is different.
We can make a smaller casting, half the weight that we made before. We can pack the heat exchanger fins closer together. We can give the designers greater opportunity to design and make new and more exciting products. And because we can make 2 at once, if you're with all this, it sounds a very long explanation, but if you're with all this, we can actually make boilers 4 times faster than we could make before. When you take in the halving in the weight and the double the output. We have really a 4-fold improvement on this foundry compared to last. And that's a tremendous achievement.
We always confirm the 2 transducer values though.
But there is one discordant note in the enthusiasm. Listen to the lecturer at this training course for Bax's production line staff.
And this signal will be converted to an analogic output, which can vary between plus and minus 10 volt DC.
The Danish accent is no coincidence. 90% of the equipment in the new factory was built abroad. The accent of the teacher might equally have been German or Swedish.
Most of the equipment we have in this foundry is made in Europe, and we have got to put in the best for us. We don't have an alternative. It's not we can't buy British if the foreign equipment is better. And so, as it happens for the foundry industry, it stands just now, the majority of the equipment is better made in Europe. But that, as I say, is related to the downturn in the foundry industry.
Back in Bolton, Beloit Walmsley have managed to claw their way back out of that trough. Their worries are all about quantities and deadlines.
We'll not hold the 20th now. The foundry have gone back to the 15th.
When do you want, Charlie?
Finishing for Christmas on the 23rd, I would say the 8th of January.
At last Monday's production meeting, managers reported progress and bottlenecks, trying to smooth the way for the burgeoning order book.
We have to ship at the moment something like 6 or 7 Yankees by the end of February. We've just come through probably the heaviest period ever. We've been averaging 1 every month.
Strength of world demand has allowed Beloit Walmsley to sustain their investment program. Amongst the innovations, a computer-aided design office linked directly to metal cutting equipment on the factory floor. But with what many fear is a recession looming, do Beloit Walmsley see a light in the gathering storm clouds?
I don't think what's happened in the stock market is going to affect us in the short term. If that results in a reduction in consumer spending and a consequent reduction in gross domestic product over a fairly long period, it will affect us. But our own cycles will be the thing which affects us. And following a big and large boom like this, there will be a downturn, and we have to be planning for that now. It will come for us, regardless of what happens to other industries.
So for those looking on, as another Yankee dryer was carefully coaxed from its mould at Beloit Walmsley last week, the future is uncertain. With 75% of production being sold abroad, they more than most are hostage to the fortunes of the world economy.
Henry Harrington.
Interesting switch as well in the Oldham side.